Jagdish sir, can we start the program?
Yes, yes, Mr. Ashok.
Yeah. Very good evening to everyone. Today, on behalf of Prayojana, myself Ashok Kumar, Executive Director for the Prayojana Construction Management Training Institute, Bangalore. Today, our session is on vertical transport. This is our 41st webinar, 41 webinar in past 2 months. We are doing a lot of programs on the construction related, management related things. That lift is an important component and is an essential component in the construction. A lot of people may not be aware of these particular things during the planning stage and the execution stage. And the interface is the major challenge. The construction, a lot of people ignore these things, and it will end up in time consuming, and the project delivery also will be dependent on this. So we thought, why can't we give for construction professionals about the training on lifts and escalators, the basic components, and what is involved in the planning stage, and what are the aspects involved in the execution stage, and how it helps for a construction professional to understand about the lift and escalators. So today with us, our eminent speaker is there, Mr. V. Jagadish Kumar. He is IGBC AP and core committee member of Indian Green Building Council, and he is a principal consultant and director for Levner Consultancy Private Limited, and he is having around 27 years of experience. He is leading one of the vertical transportation consulting firm, India's leading firm, and he is doing the lift consultancy associated with landmark projects in India with nearly 5,000 plus units under a consulting base currently. And you can say he's a lift man for India. He is also a member of CABC Lifts Group, UK, member of IGBC, I already told. And he is also chairman for a vertical transportation subcommittee in India, developing standards for the energy performance rating for the buildings. And he is having a magazine, premier magazine, on the latest technology in the field of vertical transportation. This is his credentials, and today sir is going to give a fair idea about the lifts and the escalators. Next 1.5 hours sir will be with us. Uh, with this, we are happy to invite you for this particular program, sir. Thanks for our in accepting the invite and coming for
Thank
this
you.
particular webinar. You are going to address the students and the professors from the various colleges, consultants. The audience is mainly from the construction domain, mainly from the civil engineering. Few mechanical engineers also enrolled for this particular program. I think this will be one of the eye-opening session for them, because these are the things which is not covered in the syllabus, but in the work front they have to do the works.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you, sir. You can take it up further.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Ashok Kumar, for introducing me in such a good manner. And it is always a pleasure to interact with students, construction professionals, and architects. And I welcome you all for this presentation, which I'll try to make it more interactive and insightful. And we will go through a certain journey, what is happening in the elevator and escalator front, or you normally call it as a vertical transportation. Vertical transportation means the things which are taking people vertically up, the mechanical things, like, you know, more so if I have to call elevators, escalators, and moving walks. I'm sure all of you would have experienced a ride in elevators, escalators, as well as moving walks. Moving walks are also called as travelators, which are normally in the malls or hypermarkets, where you travel from floor to floor on pallets instead of steps, which are there in escalators. So in the presentation, I'll be covering the history of the vertical transportation, as well as the basic design principles of vertical transportation, how it should be looked at. And we will also go into detail about what is an elevator, what types of elevators are there, what constitutes an elevator, and we will go little more detail into what are the features which go into the elevator and how the elevator features are useful for each product segment which is applicable in which building. For example, office building, a high speed office passenger elevator. Hospital, you need have a hospital elevator as a stretcher elevator also.
Sir,
And
excuse me, sir. Can you project your screen, sir?
I'll do that. I'll do that.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you.
So there are quite a few things which are to be looked at, and we will also look at the latest developments what are happening in the elevators. Then we will also cover a little bit on the escalator part, how it is to be positioned at sites and what exactly does an escalator do. And also we will talk about the do's and don'ts. What happens in high-rise buildings we will look at, and what happens to the elevator, what are the effects to be looked at and how the effects to be mitigated to have a comfortable elevator ride or escalator ride. We will also look at the construction sites and the do's and don'ts in the construction site as regards to the elevator installation. Right now, I'll start my presentation. Mr. Ashok, I can start, right?
Excuse me, a small announcement for the audience. There is a pin up button is there. If you go to your this thing name below that, you can pin sir's this thing name so that the screen will be visible for you. Yes, sir. You can proceed. You can project. Sir, you can project. Hello. Sir, is it audible? Hello. Is it audible, sir? Hello. Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir, it is audible.
Okay, okay. I think sir has left the meeting. He need to join again.
Hello. Mr. Ashok, am I audible now? Hello.
Yes, sir, you are audible. You can speak.
Hello.
You can speak, sir. Audible.
Right. I am sharing my screen now, but it says you are presenting. Is it okay?
No, sir, I'm not presenting. Yeah, I am just stopping my presentation.
Okay, okay.
Yes, sir, you can do it now.
Yeah. Is my screen audible now?
No, no, screen is not visible, sir.
Hello.
Sir, screen is not visible.
One second. Yeah, is it visible now?
Yes, sir. Now it is starting. Not it.
Correct.
Now it is visible, sir.
Visible,
yeah, you can proceed.
Yeah. So welcome one and all again. So as I have told you, I represent a company called Lavenir Consultancy Private Limited, a leading vertical transportation consulting firm in India. We have two business verticals per se. Vertical transportation consultancy, where we do the entire project management, vertical transportation hand-holding from the design till the final inspections of elevators, escalators, and moving walks. I also publish a magazine called Elevator Digest to give a better insight into the elevator technologies, firms, and emerging technologies in the field of vertical transportation. So what is vertical transportation? It is like a high-rise building, like 10 floor, 15 floor cannot happen without elevators, not possible. So typically these vertical transportations are like building lifelines. Now, what are the products when I say the vertical transportation consists of? They consist of elevators, escalators, and moving walks. Moving walks or travelators, you can call us. These are the three important products which constitute vertical transportation. Mr. Ashok, do let me know in case of any issue in the audio or video.
Yes, sir, I am available. I will let you know.
Yeah. So we'll start with elevators. We'll go a little bit into the elevators. The first reference for elevator is in the works of a Roman architect called Vitruvius in 236 BC. It was not like an elevator, but it was more like a hoist. Hoist means which had a weight as well as a counterweight. With the help of a pulley, it was moving up and down to lift loads, taking the mechanical advantage in view. So probably the first reference given to elevators was in 236 BC. Then there were a lot of technologies which were evolving as buildings started going up. People felt that there is a need of a mechanical system where the goods or people can be moved up and down so that they can build vertically. So there were a lot of technologies which were coming in, and one of the technologies, as you can see on the screen, it was at the Winter Palace in Russia, where Ivan Kublin has built in 1793 a screw gauge using a screwdriver technique. He has constructed an elevator sort of thing, which was sort of a thing which was paving way to a modern passenger elevator, you can say. Again, in 1823, London, they had a tourist attraction called Ascending Room, again built by two enthusiastic architects called Burton and Homer. It was designed as a tourist attraction where the people can go up and they can have a panoramic view of London. So it was one of the first elevator, you can say, which is designed for public use in London Coliseum. So while they are being built with various crude technologies available, what was happening is, whenever there was no safeties involved, in the sense, whenever the ropes were cut or something like that, elevator could fall. There could be a danger of people getting hurt. So finally, in 1853, a gentleman called Elisha Graves Otis has demonstrated his safety elevator in a very dramatic fashion in New York Crystal Palace. What he did is, he had a platform. It was having ropes. The elevator or the platform up to a certain height, and he cut off the ropes. The elevator just started falling down, but it stopped there. It stopped there because of the safety mechanism, or you can say safety lock, which is other words, if I have to say, it was a clutch mechanism where it holds on to the rails on which the elevator was traveling up and down. And he has proven to the world that a safety elevator will not fall down. Thus, it has actually started the advent of the skyscrapers going up, and suddenly the cities were going up vertically, and which was very important because it has paved way to two huge industries, I can say: construction industry, all the related industries towards the construction industry, and as well as a lot of architects were given freedom, had got freedom to design for buildings which can grow taller and taller. So when we speak of elevators, there is a certain scientific study involved, or in elevator parlance we call it as traffic analysis and planning. So for example, if you take, say, a 15-storied building, a IT building, for example, if you take, A IT building could have 15 floors, a population of 5,000 people. This is the basic inputs you have been given. And I'm sure all of you are aware of National Building Codes. National Building Codes Part 8, Section 5A covers elevators, Section 5B covers escalators, wherein there are certain directives how the traffic which is coming into the building should be addressed. That means the people who are entering the building should comfortably, within the comfortable waiting time, the elevator should be of the traffic, take them to their destination floor, and they should be comfortably traveling throughout the day, during the morning office up peak, during the lunch hour, or while going home during the down travel in the evenings. So the objective of traffic study is nothing but, as you can see on screen, is to recommend or propose an ideal vertical transportation system where the handling capacity is equal to the traffic flow at the critical period with acceptable waiting interval. To simply put it, assume a peak time in a same office building of 15 floors at 9 a.m. Assuming the population are say 5,000 people in the building, say 10% people are coming into the building at 9 a.m. That means 500 people are entering the building. Your elevator system should be designed in such a way that these 500 people are handled within 30 seconds into the elevators, and when I say 30 seconds, the waiting interval should be 30 seconds, and people are taken to their respective floors. How much percentage of the population is handled within 5 minutes period during the peak time is called as handling capacity, or the quantitative parameter. The qualitative parameter is within 25 to 30 seconds, which is waiting interval. So waiting interval should be, there are certain guidelines given for waiting interval. You can see in the upcoming slides. Handling capacity also you can see. So the key considerations, as we have talked about earlier, I'm talking again and again about these things because for the vertical transportation, like quantity of service, which is the handling capacity, quantity of service, which is the waiting interval, the traffic flow. Mainly we look at the up peak or the busy hour, so that for busy hour elevator design can sustain itself. How the elevator operations are looked at, that is one part. Like single elevator, I'll come to that in detail. A group elevator can be grouped together. That means 6 elevators are there, they talk to each other. Whichever elevator is the nearest will attend the person who is called the elevator. And as I very clearly told, it's very important to understand what is the population of the building. This population of the building is normally given by architects or the builder when the base or the concept master plan happens. So traffic study applied in mainly in residential complexes, shopping malls, hotels, hospitals, and infrastructure projects, infrastructures like airports, metros. So in a building, there can be different types of occupancies. Supposing you take a commercial building in the center of the city with 15 floors, that will be occupied by various tenants. So various are there. What does it mean? This is called as a multi-tenanted building. Multi-tenanted building means, supposing for example, I am working in the 10th floor. I enter the elevators at the ground floor. I exit at the 10th floor. And when I come down to the ground floor, I exit at the ground floor. That means my interfloor traffic, I have nothing to do with 6th, 7th, 8th floor because 10th floor is my office. Now, for example, take another case of a company like Infosys or Wipro, where a full building is occupied by the same company. Same company means it can have different departments in interfloor. Interfloor traffic is also more. So there is, that is called as a single tenancy. This is called as multi-tenancy. This to understand at the design stage whether the building is single tenancy or a multi-tenancy is very, very important, because as per the National Building Code has given the desired parameters for handling capacity weight differently for single tenancy as well as multi-tenancy. So as we have earlier talked about, handling capacity is the passenger handling capacity during a 5-minute peak period. That means the arriving percentage of the people in the building should be equal to the handling capacity of the people who are handled by the elevators in 5 minutes. Waiting interval is nothing but passenger waiting time at various floors between the elevators. That means if there are 8 elevators, the interval between the arrival of elevators should be at certain desired levels, which we'll see in the subsequent slides. Handling capacity for a multi-tenancy, it is to be desired as per National Building Code at 10 to 10. Single occupancy should be minimum at 15%. Hotels, the handling capacity should be around 10%. Hospitals, 8 to 12%. Residential complexes, 7.5%. Now, how did this happen and why there are different ranges of percentages given for different types of buildings? This is basically since the elevators have started happening, especially in Europe and US, there are a lot of people, professors and vertical transportation consultants, elevator companies have been studying the buildings, doing traffic studies, is making what on the ground floor, go to the topmost floor, in between stopping while going up at various floors, while coming down stopping at various floors and reaching the ground floor. So how many will be provided? Based on various studies, finally over some 60-70 years of study, they have arrived at certain ranges which will provide a guidance to the designers and consultants to see that if you are achieving these desired parameters, probably your providing so many number of elevators is right for handling the population of the building. Now you can see the waiting interval. The recommended range is called as X and it is less than 25 seconds. 25 to 30 seconds is very good. 30 to 35 seconds is good. 35 to 40 seconds is fair. And anything above 40 seconds is poor or unsatisfied. Normally, when you design for a building, you look at a category excellent or very good. Where you have other constraints like space and other things, you can still go into the good category. That is still, but after good category or after 35 seconds, it is not right to design in such a manner. So the vertical rotation consultants like us come into picture here to ensure that the builder and architect we closely work with and see that they are properly designing the building according to our recommendations, and we give various options that so many number of elevators working. Assuming there is a 30-floor building with a 10,000 population, you can see in so many cities you're seeing buildings which are taller than 25 floors and 30 floors, 10,000 population. You need not group all the elevators at once. You can zone the elevators. That means you can have 2 zones of elevators, say 8 plus 8 elevators. One zone will be starting from ground floor. It will be going up to say 15 floors. Others directly take an express run from ground to 15th floor and it will serve the people or the floors from 15, 16 to 30th floor. Thereby what is happening? We are trying to achieve the desired parameter or the recommended range of waiting interval and handling capacity. I request everybody to have any doubts or questions. Probably once my presentation is done, we will open the floor for questions.
Yes, sir. We are okay with that, sir.
So now, thank you. NBC also recommends, like, a thumb rule kind of a thing, 4 to 5 floors, 0.5 to 0.75, 6 to 12 floors, 1 to 1.5 meter per second speed, 13 to 20 floors greater than 1.5 meter per second speed, and anything above 30 floors we will do the traffic study and we will provide the right kind of speeds. In India normally the highest speed what we have given so far is around 6 meter per second. Even in the city where I am in Bangalore, in the center of the city near UB City Mall, Kingfisher Towers have 3 elevators running at 6 meters per second. There are quite a few elevators in Mumbai which are running at 6 meters per second. And worldwide, if you take, the fastest elevator is in Shanghai Financial Center, which travels at 20 meters per second. In Dubai, Burj Khalifa, the elevator 12 meters per second. So to cover, depending upon the number of floors it has to cover, the speeds can vary. So speeds also have an effect on humans that we will study as we go into the presentation. Now some of the examples of the elevator bank arrangements, how the lift bank should be. Bank of 4 elevators, a group of 6 elevators, a group of 8 elevators. And you remember I was telling you low zone and high zone. The grouping or the zoning of the building is done. It is low zone and high zone. Or now what happens is these desirable plans. When you look at normally it is recommended that you can have 4 elevators in a line and not more than 4 elevators. Reason being simple. A person standing here, time he walks to the 4th elevator, that is the minimum time he has 4 elevators, and it will be difficult for him to catch this elevator. That's the reason why a bank of 4 elevators is recommended. Now, some of you would have seen a new technology called destination control system, or a key provided. No hall button is given in front of the elevator. Out of the elevator lobby somewhere here, a keypad is provided where you give a input of your desired floor, like 15th floor. If you have to go, you press 15, send elevator A, B, C, D, E, F. If that is the case, you can have 5 to 6 elevators in a line because you know exactly which elevator you are going to enter into. Now, certain undesirable plans are like, low zone and high zone should be next to each other because there will be crisscrossing happening and it could cause a confusion. So it is always better that elevators are confined to a center of the building, but it should be a closed space where only people using the elevators are utilizing the lobby space here. Now that we have come to the lobby space, I just wanted to explain a simple base thumb rule of lobby space. Lobby space should be minimum of 3.5 to 4.5 meters, or it should be double the depth shaft. I'm sure you can see the arrow moving. So when you look at the elevator shaft, left to right facing the elevator is called the width. Front to back facing the elevator is called the depth. These are how the dimensions are read by in elevator language. That means this is assuming even the car inside, the elevator car inside, like so much width into so much depth. Now when I say lobby space, it should be twice the car depth is the lobby space as a thumb rule. More the better. Now we will see elevators are there. Elevators are there with machine room. Elevators are there without machine room. That is machine room less equipment. Now I will just go through the elevators with machine room. What are the parts? As we all know, elevator travels in a shaft. What we have seen earlier, this is a shaft. It travels in the shaft. And there is a pit here. There is a pit equipment. This pit equipment consists of some buffers. For some reason, if the elevator is going, elevator car is traveled down, and there is a safety failure or something which seldom happens, but in case you have buffer springs which will take the impact so that the passengers traveling are not hurt inside. Now you can see the car, you can see the counterweight here. The car is here tied with a rope, sheave and rope. This rope travels into the machine room, and there is a pulley machine arrangement and all. The rope travels above that, comes down, and the rope is again tied here to the counterweight. There is a balance between the counterweight and car, thereby with mechanical movement. And once the controller is also placed in the machine room, the control, once you say press a button at 7th floor, for example, the wiring through which the signal goes to the controller gives direction to the machine gives power to the motor, the shaft rotates, it rotates, and the elevator exactly goes to your floor, the doors open and you enter inside. Now there are certain aspects to be looked at, like to accommodate the buffers in the pit, you need certain pit depth. This pit depth is again dependent on the speeds of the elevators. For 1 MPS, you require a 1 meter per second, you require a pit depth of 1350. For 2.5 MPS, you require a pit depth of 2500 mm. For 3 MPS, you require a pit depth of 3 meters. These are all given in national building codes for reference. You can look at this pit depth is important, and you can see here bottom landing. The finished floor level of the bottom landing is here. The finished floor level of the top landing, where is ground to 15th floor. Ground floor is the bottom landing, 15th floor is the top landing. Now the distance between the finished floor levels of ground floor and 15th floor is called the elevator travel or the rise in elevator language. This is important. Pit depth, the rise or the travel height, and the overhead. These are important for the elevator designers to calculate the rope lengths and the traveling cable lengths. Rope is tied from the car to the counterweight in various manners, 1:2 or 2:1 roping. And the traveling cable is nothing but the wiring within the car, which is connected to various floors as well as the controller. Now, what is the overhead? Overhead is nothing but the distance between the top landing FFL and underside of the machine room. Why is it called as a overhead? Why is it required? Normally, for example, if you take a 1.75 meter per second, the overhead required is 4.8 meters. Why 4.8 meters is required? Because every floor may be 3 meters only, floor to floor height. Last landing to the underside is 4.8, depending on the speed again. Why? Because this is the car. Car has certain height of 2.5, 2.6. There is a person, if he is standing and servicing the elevator here on the top, he has certain height. And for some reason, if the elevator over travels, you have limit switches here to cut it off mechanically and electrically. But still, if it travels also, there is a certain safe distance provided for the elevator not to bang onto the machine room floor. But yes, there are quite a few instances where the elevators have banged, but to various reasons. But in general, the overhead is also designed. So if you can see, there is a pit, there is a travel height, there is a overhead. And again, when we come to the machine room accommodates your controllers. You can see here in this picture, controller and your machine. This also need to have certain height. This again depends on the machine size. Machine size varies depending on the speed of the elevators. Speed of the elevators, the machine could be larger. 10 meter per second is like a huge machine. So you have to ensure it has a proper height. And there are, you can see here, there is a hoisting beam or it could be a hoisting hook. These are required to carry the machine up. This is required. And there is a trap door provided here and there is a hook again here. Why? Because if you want to carry any heavy equipment later during maintenance phase, a motor is winding has to be done. The motor is brought here, the trap door is opened, and then through the tripod or chain pulley block, the motor is lowered into the top floor and taken through some other elevator down, or the service elevator, it will be taken. Mr. Ashok, audio is fine, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can proceed.
Thank you. So now we look at machine roomless equipment. See, machine roomless equipment is nothing but there is no machine room here. Everything is the same. Pit is there, the travel height or rise is there, the overhead is there. Everything is the same as machine room because the speed, everything matches same. Then how a machine roomless is varied from a machine room equipment? See, machine roomless equipments were actually derived keeping the architect's design perspectives in view. That means, because if you see a nice building with a good elevation and all, the elevation could be spoiled with the machine rooms jutting out. So what they did is they wanted to see if there is a elevator which is possible or entire elevator equipment is accommodated within the shaft so that they're eliminating the machine room. In a IT building of 15 floors, when you're eliminating the machine room, or if the terrace floor is devoid of any machine rooms, what happens is you get a good floor space here for various activities. Maybe a canteen can be provided there, a beautiful garden can be provided. I mean, it leaves options to your imagination. How a machine roomless elevator has come into picture. So what has happened is around say 20 years ago, the elevator technology has been little transformed. The geared elevators were there before, where you have a big machine, a big shaft to run the motor, and there is a gear unit. Everything was huge. To accommodate the huge equipment, you had to have machine rooms. So now what has happened is there is a new technology which has come, which is called as a belt driven elevator. Earlier all elevators are, even now most of the elevators are rope driven in machine rooms. In machine roomless, there is a belt driven technology used mostly in machine roomless. What is a belt driven and a rope driven? Now when a rope is carrying the tight to the elevator, I'll go back to the machine room slide. You can see there are, depending on the elevator size and all, there are 3 ropes or 4 ropes or 5 ropes or 8 ropes. Each rope could be, depending on the weight, it could be a steel rope. It will be a steel rope of 10 mm to 13 mm dia. So this 10 mm to 30 mm dia ropes are there. All these ropes for huge equipment, the friction will be less. So machine room with a huge equipment, huge motor, machine, everything is provided. In machine roomless with coated steel belt technology, what happens is a rope is taken, the rope strands are totally flattened and it is coated with a polyurethane belt. So the rope, how it is possible? So the rope bending radius, if you take, the steel rope's bending radius is very large. That means it requires a large pulley for that bending radius. And large pulley requires a large shaft to run the pulley. A large shaft requires a higher RPM motor to run it, higher electricity controllers. That's why machine room is required. In a belt driven, the bending radius of the belt is almost 1/10 or even less of a rope, steel rope. So when you bend this rope, the shaft required is small, the pulley required is small, the shaft required to run the pulley is very small, and the motor capacity is small, and it comes as a without gear. So a gearless machines are introduced, and the entire machine, as you can channels here inside the machine room itself. So the controller is kept somewhere here, the machine is on the channels here, and the elevator runs up and down here. If a service technician has to service the elevator, he goes on the top of it, the elevator cab, and he services the machine as well as the controller. So machine roomless equipment has this advantage. The disadvantage of machine roomless equipment is also there. That means a rope, normally rope elevator has got certain stretch. Assuming the elevator is traveling at high speed of 3 meters per second. When it's traveling at high speed of 3 meters per second, what happens is suddenly there is a power failure. the elevator stops with a heavy jerk. Entire jerk normally is transferred into the elevator car. It is not transferred into the elevator car for the simple reason that the ropes which are given are stretchable to a certain extent. The rope stretch absorbs a lot of vibration and jerk, and so that the people inside are comfortable. So at high speeds, if you use coated steel belt elevators in with machine roomless, coated steel belt, as I told you, it is coated with a polyurethane belt. This is end to end, it is totally fixed. There is no stretch possible in that. So the jerk felt in machine roomless, if it is very high speed, is high. Machine roomless is okay up to speeds of 1.7 meter per second or 2.5 meter per second. Of course, even machine roomless equipment with very high speeds are now being introduced with the proper a sort of a UPS kind of technology is introduced into the elevator. When there is a power failure, it momentarily comes into action, thereby seeing that elevator comes to a smooth stop and also starts smoothly. So these are various advantages you have architecturally or building height wise, machine roomless and machine room equipment. Machine roomless, when they were introduced, they were around 10 to 15% costlier than with machine room elevators. Now, as the volumes are growing up over the last 20 years, whether it is a machine room elevator or machine roomless elevator, we don't see too much of a difference commercially as well. So otherwise, it is all the same. So while we have understood the section, I will just cover the plan. You can see the shaft here. This is the brick wall where there is a front wall and the doors are there inside, and there is an elevator car. You can also see the counterweight here. So in the elevator shaft, the elevator comes 2, 3, 4. That means 2 rails for the car to travel. Guide rail is nothing but your train, how it travels horizontally, your regular trains horizontally on rails. Elevator travels vertically on rails. And even the counterweight travels vertically on rails. And there is a distance between the rails which has to be fixed, and distance can vary between the capacities and the car widths and all. It is properly designed as per the National Building Code guidelines, and this is for the product manufacturer to worry about, not for us. So when you go to the top view, you can see the shaft here. You can see the elevator car and various, these are squares, what you can see are all the rope cutouts where the elevator ropes have to come into the machine room, travel over the pulley and travel down again to the counterweight. So, and you also can see a trap door, and there is a machine room door here, and there are windows or cross ventilation. This cross ventilation is very important to ensure that the elevator machinery does not heat up as much. So there are quite a few other technologies which are energy efficient. I'll come to it when we discuss about green lifts. Mr. Ashok, I hope so far clear, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can proceed.
Yeah. Now, just to have a look at, we have heard a lot of terms like elevator capacities, elevator speeds, elevator cars, elevator lift well or shaft sizes, elevator entrance widths, pit depth and overhead. For an auto door in general, if we have to take, for example, I will take a 10 passenger 1.5 MPS speed. A 10 passenger is 680 kgs. Why 680 kgs? In India, as per the IS standards, NBC standards, 68 kg is taken as per person weight. So based on that, now the recent recommendations which we have also given to the National Building Code or the IS committees is that we have to come on par with the international weight standards of 75 kg per person on average. So if you take 680 kgs as currently done, 10 passenger transforms into 680 kgs at 1.5 meter per second speed inside, that is car width and car depth, 1300 mm wide and 1350 mm deep. The lift well required for that is 1900 mm by 2100 mm deep. 800 mm is the door opening. Normally a standard door opening should be 700 mm, as you can see for a small elevator of 5 passenger or 6 passenger, which are normally used in standalone residences or villa projects. And pit depths are given here, overhead is given here. Why entrances are important, or why a entrance should be minimum 700 for a auto door? That is to carry a wheelchair inside. A minimum width is there prescribed for a wheelchair. If a person is pushing a wheelchair inside, a person going into the elevator with wheelchair, a minimum 700 mm is comfortable opening for the person to go inside. And this is also, IS and NBC has got a nice separate chapter talking about the disabled friendly features which needs to be incorporated into the elevators. Now we'll come to high-rise buildings or the elevatoring issues to be taken care of when you design for high-rise buildings. See, like we are designing for one building in Bangalore which is 54 floors, presidential towers in Yeshwantpur. Hyderabad, we are doing a lot of office buildings which are 45 floors also. So a high-rise building with high density population will have 5 meter per second, 6 meter per second speeds. So there are certain effects to be taken care of when you actually design for the elevators. One is called the piston effect. Then there is a building sway or the stack effect. Piston effect. Normally what happens is, in a single shaft, that means a shaft is covered by wall and an elevator door, totally enclosed. Assuming an elevator is traveling at a speed of 6 meters per second. When the elevator is traveling at the rated speed of 6 meters per second, the air displaced by the car. That means, imagine a piston at 6 meters per second going in the enclosed shaft. There is a gap between the car, elevator car, and the hoistway. The air is displaced. The air travels, the displaced air travels as almost double the speed of the elevator. That means, if the elevator is traveling at 6 meters per second, the air displaced travels at 12 meters per second. That's a very high this thing. And when it travels and crosses the car, it can cause a lot of vibration and noise. That needs to be mitigated. How do we do it? You need to provide a vent there to just go out. That means you have to design for air vent holes to mitigate this piston effect. So to reduce the noise level created by the airspeed, air vent holes or pressure relief vent holes are needed. So speeds up to 2.5 meter per second, air vent hole in the overhead area. Overhead area means the topmost landing to the underside of the machine room floor is required. For higher speeds, like 6 meter per second, when you talk, you may require a couple of air vent holes at the bottommost floors, couple of air vent holes in the middle floors, couple of air vent holes in the topmost floors, so that this pressure relief holes can be comfortably used. It can be used when we have an adjacent shaft or an adjacent air duct. That means it should normally, when high speed elevators are provided, not a only single elevator is not provided. There will be 4 or 5 elevators, as we told. It will be a bank of 4 elevators. That means in the pit area, if you are providing air vent holes in the partition walls, so the elevator traveling here, air displaces, it goes to the next shaft, it goes to the next shaft, thereby air moves from shaft to shaft, thereby creating relief to the air and also comfort to the people traveling inside who are not affected by the noise or the vibration created by the high speed of the elevator. Now these pressure relief holes, when they are created in the overhead area and all, their mechanical ventilation can be provided in fire protected hoistways. What is a fire protected hoistway? This fire protected hoistway is nothing but which is created a mechanical ventilation, auto ventilation is provided in the overhead area. Whenever there is a fire that activates and a gush of air goes down, thereby not allowing fire or smoke to come up using the elevator shaft as a tunnel. Normally, we all know that heat travels upwards. So, mechanically ventilated shaft, when it is provided, mechanical ventilation, then mechanically ventilated fire protected shafts with fire dampers will ensure that the pressure relief holes are also applied for that purpose. Building sway, like you, for example, you take worldwide, if you take Freedom Towers in New York, and you can actually, when you go on top of certain those kind of buildings, or Burj Khalifa in Dubai, you can see that building is swaying a bit, or there is a sway tolerance designed by the designers. So this building sway, normally what happens is elevators, as we told, they travel with the help of ropes. So, and the weight and the weight in the car, the weight in the counterweight in high-speed buildings are compensated by something, steel chains called compensation chains, overspeed governor ropes, suspension ropes, and the traveling cable which carry the thing. If these are long or over 150, 200 meters, they tend to sway along with the building. So what we need to do is, we need to tell the product manufacturers to ensure that there is a kind of aerodynamic design which needs to be given to avoid the building sway effect on elevators. So the sway behavior of ropes and cables are considered in the product design by the elevator vendors while installing the equipment to prevent building sway. So you can just see this Burj Khalifa, 4 feet of sway it has got. So to mitigate that, various equipment, elevator is also one of that. So the building, the product design has to be in such a way that it takes care of this 4 feet sway. Now something called a stack effect. Stack effect is nothing but it is the movement of air into the building and out of the building driven by buoyancy. That means the air pressure differences. Normally in most of the IT buildings, what they do is the lobbies are fire protected. That means it is fire protected, nothing, it is controlled by air conditioned. If the fire lobbies are, the elevator lobbies are fire protected, you don't really require a mechanical ventilation or a fire ventilation shaft, mechanical ventilation to the elevator shaft. If the lobbies are all fire protected, then what happens? The pressure maintained is the same. So the fire cannot enter into the lobbies. So thereby the elevators are safe. So it helps in driving natural ventilation, infiltration and fire. So nothing for stack effect is nothing but essential that all elevator lobbies are well sealed to minimize the stack effect. So here in this you can see the air pressure, how the movement of air pressure is happening. Now we have taller buildings. Now we need to talk about taller, smarter buildings also for future. So that you can see Burj Khalifa here, the tallest building in the world. That's why I've taken this example. The taller the building, the higher the complexity of the design. Burj Khalifa is at 828 meters with 160 floors. And this gives rise to a lot of questions like how to ensure smooth people flow when serving all the floors. That means what kind of traffic study such that wait times are no more than 30 seconds after hitting the call button. How to gear up for an emergency like earthquake or fire. Also how to consider the depressurization in the cabin in less than 30 seconds and build a powerful braking system. So if there is a fire in Burj Khalifa, if somebody is in say 140th floor, what happens? Can elevators be used in case of fire? Normally you would have seen in most of the cases lot of signage is written that in case of fire do not use the elevators. Yes, that is still holds good for India, because in tall buildings like Burj Khalifa there are certain emergency evacuation high-rise buildings, which is a requirement, that emergency evacuation elevators are provided at certain fire refuge floors. During your construction studies or architectural studies, you would have seen that tall buildings are designed for refuge floors at certain heights. For example, 4th floor, 8th floor, 12th floor, 15th floor will be the refuge floors are designated. So these emergency evacuation elevators serve those refuge floors, and they are separate lobbies are created to that, totally fire protected, and the entire power to that emergency evacuation elevators are given by a generator or a secondary power, not the primary power. It will be constant and 100% always available to those elevators. In case of fire, there will be drills. The people will come to their designated fire refuge floor. They wait in the fire refuge area. They take those emergency evacuation elevators and go down. Normally, these emergency evacuation are used with priority for the people who cannot take stairs, who cannot run down this thing, who cannot use the other modes of emergency evacuation like balconies or outside fire escape stairs and all. They'll be given priority in the emergency evacuation elevators. Later people. So what are the innovations which are happening and intelligent and smart technology which is happening for future India? So as I told you, destination dispatch control system. You would have seen in many buildings, there are buildings with 4-car group, 6-car group. You press the button and suddenly you will see another third elevator coming. You rush to that elevator. Taking of the elevator helps. Normally, when you press a button, the elevator sends it to your signal to the controller that a person in the second floor has pressed the button. Now, out of that 6-car group, the elevator controller senses whichever is the elevator car nearer to you, and it will come near to it will ensure that that elevator will serve you. In high up peak situation, like 15-20% of the building population is coming at between 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. So at that point of time, more than group control, what happens is destination control systems are given. Destination control system, what does it do? It has a keypad. You can see the number of floors here, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You press, say, 23rd floor if you are going, you press 23. Then what happens? It will assign assign an elevator to you. Elevator A, B, or C, D, E, F, anything. You directly go there. Now in a group control, what happens is, assuming we are 5 of us, I am traveling to the 1st floor, you are traveling to the 5th floor, somebody is traveling to the 9th floor. All of us get into one elevator. I press 1st floor, you press 2nd floor, and your friend presses 9th floor. Elevator will stop in all floors. But in a destination control system, if I am going to the 1st floor, all the people going to 1st floor are designated one single elevator. All the people going to the top floor are designated one single elevator. You can see the differential colors here. All the people going to the middle floors are makes a single stop instead of making all the stops. Thereby, what is happening here? Your handling capacity is very efficient, your waiting interval is very efficient, and your equipment, whole vertical transportation system becomes very, very efficient because it is making only number of stops and starts. So this is a very interesting and important technology which is slowly becoming very common in most of the buildings. Now, though we do not have in India so far, you have something called as a double-decker elevators. These double-decker elevators are useful assuming land scarcity is there in certain buildings, like financial capital in India, Mumbai. Mumbai has a land scarcity. There, a building is designed, but they may not be able to provide the building may require 10. Now, if you do not have the space for 10, you can look at double-decker elevators. Thereby, these 10 elevator shafts can be reduced to 5 elevator shafts. And the elevator shafts are one above the other. People can travel in the lower deck, people can travel in the upper deck. Here, the design has to be when you design for double deck elevators. Why? Because when the lower floor, upper deck also has to be in line with the floor. That means you cannot have floor height differences. That means this deck also has to stop at the end of the elevator cabin as well as the floor level. Now in double deckers also there is a little flexibility where the elevator has got a certain hydraulic system where there will be a certain movement after the elevator stops, thereby addressing certain amount 300 to 500 mm differences in floor heights. You can still use double decker. Now when you are in ground floor, you can take a lower deck elevator. How do you take the upper deck elevator in ground floor? You need an escalator to go to the, that means technically you will have 2 ground floors. So people who are, signages are very important in double decker elevators, where people who are designated upper decks will take an elevator, go to their upper deck, and then destination dispatch system, they will key in their designated floor, the elevator comes and they move up. Now there is another interesting technology also available, which is called twin, where 2 elevators travel independently in the same shaft. A German multinational called Thyssen manufactures this in their German facility, where I have actually seen this thing in action, the twin elevators traveling one above other. There is no big technology involved, but what happens is you require a larger shaft. That means lower deck elevator is a regular elevator with a machine room, rope and counterweight. Here what happens is the upper deck elevator with the help of a pulley room is provided here, and through the pulleys the ropes are all designed to travel to the end of the shafts, and then there is a machine here. So it travels above and this travels below. Only disadvantage in anything is, like, the lower deck elevator cannot reach the topmost floor, the upper deck elevator cannot reach the bottommost floor. But all said and done, it will save a lot of space, and within the reduced space you can have more number of elevators. This is called twin elevator. And interestingly, there is another technology which is being done by a multinational called Thyssen Group, and various other companies are also looking at this technology called multi. Multi means these are ropeless equipment. That means elevator cars, if there is a wide tall building, elevator shafts are provided horizontally and vertically. Assuming, example I'll give you, a residential complex is there with blocks A, B, C, D, E. You are in the 5th floor of block A. You want to go to the 20th floor of block D. You have one elevator in block A and reach 20th floor in block D. How does that happen? This technology is called multi. In this figure you can see the elevators cabins only are there. They do not are the machine technology. I'll come to that. The elevator travels horizontally, elevator travels vertically, and there are a lot of elevator cabs provided within the building. They keep moving up and down and horizontally, vertically as well, and to take you to your designated floor. How this happens? This technology, these elevator cabs work on, you would have heard you would have seen these bullet trains in China, India also they are going to come. They work on magnetic levitation. That means rail and the train. Similarly, here also there is a gap between the elevator cabin and the rail, and at each floor, designated floor, there is a disc provided. So when the elevator is traveling vertically, It comes and stops here. There is a disc behind it. The disc also is in line with the railing which goes like this. So the disc behind this elevator cabin rotates so that this cabin moves horizontally and stops here. Again, if the disc rotates, it can travel vertically. So this is the technology being now tested, and in Germany they are going to very soon install it. From the concept and the master plan, it has to be designed for this kind of a technology. And you also have something called as solar powered elevators. Solar powered elevators are nothing but powered by solar panels, thereby it is more energy efficient. These are the it's a regular technology where solar powered energy is captured in batteries. Those batteries are used to run the elevators. That means you are running your elevators on renewable power. So that brings me to escalators for a bit. I'm sure everybody would have traveled in escalators. Escalators have a lower landing and there is a upper landing. So a lower landing, upper landing, keep in mind because we'll use a lot of references. And you can see this is called as the balustrade, and the covering on the balustrade is as the glass, depending on the applications. In metros and all, if you have traveled, you would have seen a steel balustrade. In malls and all, you will see a glass balustrade to add to the beauty of the malls. Now, when you look at the drawing of the thing, if the escalator normally comes with the entire equipment. Entire equipment means the pit is a mechanical part. The entire escalator is a mechanical part. It comes and it rests on this point A and point B and bolted there. So escalator installation is simple. Adjustment later is critical. Now escalator runs on two angle of inclinations. One is 30 degree, one is 35 degree. Why only two angle of inclination? The reason for two angle of inclination is at a human being is comfortable standing at an inclination of 30 degree or 35 degree. So why 30 degree and 35 degree? Any floor height up to 6 meters and below can use a 35 degree angle. When this angle is lesser, when you calculate, there are 2 points where the elevator, point A, point B. The distance or the beam to beam distance is the distance between point A and point B. Depending on the angle, the distance can vary. So at a 30 degree, the distance is higher. That means in metros and all, you would have seen a tall 15-meter long escalators and all. A 15-meter long escalator also does not come in a single piece. A 3-meter floor height escalator will come in a 15-meter escalator can come in 2 or 3 pieces where it is jointed in between. And to avoid sagging for a long escalator, there is a support column given in between. And these are all the steps. You can see the elevation plan here, the width given, and how do you calculate. And you would have noticed that there are flat steps here. For a up to 35 degree or a light duty escalator, normally 2 flat steps are given because people can comfortably walk in 2 and go up. For a 6 meter or a 9 meter or a 15 meter tall, depending on the rise of the height of the escalator, it can go up 3 or 4 flat steps. Because in metros and all, if you are using, probably you are carrying your luggage. When you are carrying your luggage, you are taking those flat steps, being comfortable, then hold the handrail and then go up the escalator comfortably and alight the escalator comfortably. This is basically the thing. And only because I told this pit also is part of the elevator equipment, this pit is to be provided only where there is Mother Earth. To accommodate this pit equipment, you need to provide for a pit. Normally escalators you would have seen in the upper floors where you will only have to provide a pit cutout to accommodate this equipment. There is no pit construction required in the upper floors. So these are the escalator steps. This yellow marking is only given to ensure that you stand within that yellow marking, which is the safety range. And there are certain innovations which are going on where for architectural purpose there are certain spiral escalators provided. I have seen these escalators in Caesars Palace in Las Vegas, where quite a number of escalators are provided. Just to give you the complexity commercially, these spiral escalators, normally an escalator may be costing around, normal escalator would cost around 25 to 30 lakhs. A spiral escalator of the same height would cost you around 8 to 9 crores. Yeah, you heard me right, it is 8 to 9 crores. Now you can see moving walkways or the travelators. These are mostly used, a flight or a 0-degree angle is used to cover long distances where people do not want to walk in airports when you move from gate to gate in the terminals. And there is another thing in hypermarkets. If you want to carry your trolley to the first floor of the hypermarket or supermarket, you take your trolley and go in an angle of inclination of 10 degree, 11 degree or 12 degree. And this also has a step width like escalator, like 800, 1000 mm or 1200 mm depending on the thing. So this travelator is also on the, typically on the same principle of escalators. Because of the paucity of time, I'm just rushing through a little bit. Now, what are the things to remember when you, from a civil point of view, when you are designing for elevator shafts? You have to ensure that elevator lift well or lift shafts are clear plumb sizes. All plumb dimensions which are given in the NBC, the shaft sizes which are given are clear plumb sizes after plastering. So you have to ensure that some tall buildings normally are given certain plumb tolerances. Why plumb tolerances are given? Because as the elevator shaft progresses, there can be plumb differences. But plumb differences can be there in the shaft, but the elevator car has to travel in a straight line. There cannot be any plumb differences. That means elevator travels, there is a guide rail to the left, there is a guide rail to the right, on which the elevator cabin travels. The distance between the guide rail has to be uniform. If it is 1000 mm, distance between the guide rail is 2000 mm at ground floor, even at the 30th floor, it will be 2000 mm only. So you can provide for plumb tolerance, not very much to the extent of 50 to 100 mm in the shaft. So that means the civil engineers constructing that, the elevator vendors who are involved in the project, every 3 to 4 floors, it is better to check the plumb tolerance so that you avoid chipping later. And when the front walls are elevator shafts are normally have to be constructed 3 sides. The front wall should not be constructed till the elevator door entrance is fixed. Why? Because elevator car is traveling. Elevator car has a center line for the doors opening to left and right. Landing doors are provided in all landings. The center line of the landing door and center line of the car door has to align correctly. How this happens? When you take the plumb and align exactly the all door entrances from 0 to 30th floor in one single straight plumb, so that when the doors are installed, the plumb is very, very clear. So now I'm spending so much time to ensure, to tell you or stress upon you that this plumb tolerance is very, very important. Now, installation and maintenance, lot of coordination is required. If you have proper understanding on various equipments going into the building, the civil site engineer, the architect, consultants, lift manufacturer, electrical engineer, mechanical engineer should have a proper coordination. Information should be exchanged through design review meetings from till the installation and including maintenance. And now all electrical works should be aligning with Indian Electricity Acts. The entire elevators are normally conformed to IS standards or NBC 2016 standards, which we are currently using. Then there is, as we have already discussed this, there is conformity required with fire regulations. and there are regulations for fireman elevator. A minimum building which is crossing a height of 15-meter height should have one fireman elevator. That means 544 kgs. The car area should not be less than 1.44 square meters. It should travel at a speed of 1 meter per second. Safety guidelines in construction site. All construction site till the elevator landing doors are provided should be given entrance barricades, which the elevator vendor does. The scaffolding. Nowadays, mostly people are using steel scaffolding. There will be safety nets, heavy duty safety nets provided in the hoistway so that at intermittent levels, because people should not fall down. Fall protection on the car top so that any tool falling down on people working down. Normally in an elevator shaft, only 2 people are allowed to work at a single point of time. Why? Because if 3-4 people are working at different this thing, there could be fall hazard issues. Lighting and ventilation in the machine room hoistway should be adequately lighted. There should be a pit ladder proper provided to enter into the pit, because high speed elevators will have deeper pits. Waterproofing should be done. A fire elevator lobbies should be having a slight slope facing away from the elevator entrance, because so that the water in the floor is not entering into the elevator shafts. And also there should not be any common wall with the lift machine room with a water tank. That should be very clear, because code says that you should not have a common wall where there could be issues of water seepage into the lift machine room. Coming to green elevators, we have discussed this gearless technology. If gear is not there, gear oil is not there, so no oil lubrication. Coated steel belt is energy efficient because it's a smaller machine consuming lesser energy. And the ropes are substituted with coated steel belts. Coated steel belts do not require rope oil, so oil is not used. Then the other important point is the regenerative drives. These regenerative drives, what happens normally is an elevator travels, the motor travels with heavy load up or empty car going down. Motor acts as a generator and it generates electricity even now. The generated electricity is transformed by the control into heat energy, and the heat is dissipated into the machine room through resistors. In a regenerative drive, what happens is the heat energy, that electrical energy is captured by the regenerative drive, and it is flown into the building grid where it regenerates the clean power. The clean power produced can be used for various other purposes from the building grid. And car aesthetics, of course, is again a green feature because you are providing friendly features. I've come to the end of my presentation. I leave this slide for a minute. You can note down my number and email ID so that, in case any one of you want to call me, or if you have doubts later, you can always ask me or call me or mail me.
Sir, wonderful presentation.
So Mr. Ashok, I've come.
Yeah, wonderful presentation. Lot of new things I have seen in this presentation. And the reason I organized this presentation is a lot of difficulties, challenges we faced during the projects that these young people should not face in the future. Regarding the dimensions, the verticality.
Exactly.
These are the challenges, and the sequence also. In one of the project, I will tell you, it happened in Electronic City, Bangalore only. There are 17 towers under construction, and for getting the elevators, they ordered all the planning engineers has ordered all the 17, and the progress will not happen in the site. All the 17 will not come up require same time. And the machines came from there, and we could not able to store the elevator materials for more than 12 months, because these are high value products and it has to be properly stored, and it requires storage money also, and space and everything. You need to put a security for that, because a lot of construction sites you will not be having a proper security system. The elevator agency has to guard the materials. The developer will say this is the responsibility of the elevator agency. So the planning is very much important, and you stressed the points on the planning, and then the technical things and the advanced systems you have taken to all over the world. You have shown in 1.5 hours, and we were totally mesmerized about this presentation. And this is not happening in the colleges. That's unfortunate because the cross domain trainings are not happening. Even the mechanical
Unfortunate. Yes,
engineers,
yes.
they should come forward and teach the civil engineers about the,
In fact,
yeah,
I misaddressed the live audience.
mechanical engineers should come forward and the civil engineers should take their support in the construction technology or the construction management programs. They should give these kind of syllabus so that the people
Correct.
will be successful in the projects. They will not ask the experience. Why the experience is being asked in the projects? Because they understand, the
Yes.
developers and the people understand at least minimum 3 to 4 years of experience they require, means they know something on the construction. That's the reason. If these things are known in the college level itself, and it will be very useful for the engineers, they can get a good job and a decent salary, and in progress also will happen nicely. There will not be any much issues in the project side, and the time duration also they can reduce,
Yeah,
and the cost also they can save. That's my this thing. So
absolutely.
about our institution also, I would like to say that we are giving a lot of professional trainings, mainly in the cross-functional areas
Correct.
and in the which is not covered in the syllabus, but really which is required at the projects. Why the which is so that is the gap what we found, and we framed the syllabus, and we are giving the lot of MEP trainings also for the civil engineers, and MEP engineers are getting the civil engineering training because they should understand. The mechanical people also should
True.
understand the civil works. Then only in the project side they can do the work as a team. That's what we are doing. And
Correct.
thank you for your wonderful session. And some questions may be coming from audience. Let us see how the questions are coming up.
Yes.
Yeah, audience,
Yes.
this is open for
And
you.
you can I can see quite a number of questions in the chat as well.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can compile them and share it with me. Later I can address to that also. Now we'll
yeah.
take some live questions.
Yes, yes, yes. People who are interested to ask some questions, you can ask. I will share the webinar link also. A lot of people are asking the feedback link. I will give you the feedback link in another 5 minutes. You can ask the questions, so whatever related in your mind, it is there. Uh, Sivaraman sir, I think, are you there?
Yes.
Sivaraman sir? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sivaraman sir is working for SABIC. And sir, you can share your thoughts about the presentation to the sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Nice to attend this lecture, Mr. Jagdish Kumar. In
Thank
fact,
you.
the elevator and escalator have been a fascinating subject for any civil engineer like me. I was fascinated last 25 years also. So like that, for any civil engineer, this has been a fascinating subject. And only two elements in any building goes for a continuous improvement and fast development. One is the structural glazing, the other one is the elevator. So I recall the days 26 years before when I constructed a machine room is 4 times the size of the shaft, and then I had to give a big cutout from the terrace slab to take the lift, big machines and all. Now very sleek things have come in 25 years. Too
Correct.
much of advancement has come in, and every project where the escalator and the elevator
True.
is involved, that gave me, irrespective of my number of years of experience, it gave me a feeling that I don't have any previous experience kind of challenges it is giving. It continues to be a challenge for me. And when I came to my SABIC headquarters for the first time, I was confused by seeing the only the number pads on the outside, and the inside the car there was no button except for the panic button. Then this is the
Correct.
technology you described, the destination dispatch control system. Later, I came to know that that kind of elevator Schindler has already supplied to Mumbai Stock Exchange building. That is the only place
Yeah.
this kind of elevator was fixed. I was told when I
Now
spoke to.
in most of the metros in India, so many buildings are there. Even in Bangalore, there are at least 30-40 buildings equipped with this system now.
Okay. So, by the way, you explained the multi and the green elevators. I think the elevator subject, not only currently, in future also, it is going to be a fascinating thing for the
Yeah.
engineers to come in future. So, thanks a lot. It was a very wonderful lecture,
True.
and I hope our students would also have enjoyed a lot. Thank you. This subject is not taught in any engineering
Absolutely.
college or even polytechnic. I was inquiring the guys in the college. They in none of the departments, neither the electrical nor the mechanical, and not even the civil engineers. Maybe architectural classes it may be taught, but it's good that you had given a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
was about to
input.
tell you that architecture, I think in their second year, one of the semesters, vertical transportation is covered as a subject. Where I normally go to a lot of architectural colleges because sharing knowledge is my interest also to give them the lectures on vertical transportation and latest stuff.
It came into syllabus because NBC has a separate chapter for vertical transportation.
Exact
Maybe
section,
because
correct.
of that, there. And moreover, very importantly, you have touched upon a very important angle to view to the high-rise buildings. We were thinking only structural engineers are important for high-rise buildings to stand. You opened my eyes saying that the high-rise buildings was possible because elevator technology is there. Imagine Burj Khalifa not having any escalator or elevator. People have to walk in the steps for 60 floors. So no one will dare to build that tall structures. So elevator technology is very closely coupled with tall structure technologies. Thanks a lot, Mr. Jagdish Kumar. I had a wonderful
And
time.
even
Thank you,
sir,
sir. Thank you.
airports are under construction. If you take Mumbai International Airport, you can't walk. You can't catch the flight if you walk. And
I agree.
people are using the travelators to reach the time because the terminal itself like that it takes a
So
time.
many gates, so less.
Yeah, it's a take a very much long time to catch the flight from the entrance to the this thing. And the hundreds of
Correct.
airports are under construction. These people, the civil engineers, should know what are the limitations and what is travelator, what is escalator. All these things one should know to understand.
Absolutely.
A lot of positive notes are coming up, sir. Nearly 150 plus students and the professors and a lot many people. Nearly 450 plus registrations came in. Around 150 audience were continuous. Where I can see the
Excellent.
attendance and the registration. And that's
Excellent.
this thing, sir. This is the very first program on MEP we have covered in this construction management series. And before that, we are given form or lot many new
Oh,
subjects we are taking up, which is required for the construction. And even these days, a lot of buildings which are completed and age old buildings also facing the issues on the elevators. The facility managers are facing a lot of trouble. Even my
absolutely.
apartment is having an issue on the elevator. Every 3 months or 4 months, it gets stuck down, and people are cursing the builder. And the builder is saying, sir, both
Correct.
the elevators are given by to the same party only. If one gets problem, means that is your issue. You are not using it
Yeah.
properly. We could not understand the science behind it. What is the why it is going
I,
faulty every time? The other elevator works nicely. Both are same make only, same time it was installed. But
correct. Correct.
that
Correct. Yeah.
those kind of information is required for any engineer to know, understand why it is happening, what is the issue. Really, we have to fix it. Lot of agencies,
Absolutely.
we have changed so many maintenance agency also. They come with new things, and they could not fix the things properly. So the experts are
Absolutely.
that's
Ashok, the first elevator in Bangalore is, I think, in Bangalore Palace. Those who are interested can go and see the technology. It is different from what we are using every day. And maybe 100 years ago, the Bangalore Palace has that kind of elevator. It is still there for exhibition.
great, sir.
Yeah,
Great,
you
sir.
are
Nice
right.
to know about. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Jagdish
Correct.
sir. It
Correct.
was a
Correct.
very nice session, and I
Thank you so
will.
much. Thank you all. And any time your institute needs our services on knowledge sharing, I'll be
Thank you,
more
sir.
willing to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah. Who is this?